How do they, guys, and welcome back to Edgar TV, your one-stop location for all your darting content. We've got video diaries, predictions, news, everything you need darts related right here on Edgar TV. So make sure you are subscribed, because today we're going to be taking a look over the latest PDC finalist, or should I say the DRA, who act on behalf of the PDC. The DRA is the Darts Regulation Authority, and the PDC have the ability to refer cases to the DRA, and then the DRA will assume and look into the allegations, take statements where needed, see if it goes against any of the rules, and then put forward the appropriate punishment. Now, what I'm going to do, I'm going to look through the list, and I'm going to try and put a bit of meat on the bones as well as we go through this. And first of all, this is what it's like. So this isn't the latest one. This is just to give you an idea of what it looks like. So you've got the date down the side, the player who is in question, the reason as to what the issue was. So we've got microphone going here, failure to mark, was from the PDC. The rule here which it broke, which is 3.15, and then the punishment, the fine, or whatever the DRA have decided is going to be the outcome. Now, in some situations, you may see, and as we go through these, that it won't be a rule that's on the DRA, it'll be a different number. Now, that is from the PDC player's contract. Now, when you get a PDC tour card, you'll be sent a PDC player's contract, and you have to sign that to be a part of the PDC. I believe that is with Matchroom, that contract, if I am correct. Now, when you sign that contract, obviously you agree to all the terms that are in there. So there's another terms that you can obviously find yourself fined for outside of the DRA rulebook as well. We'll go through those as we go. I think the first place to start is literally the very top. The big story of this, the one that's getting national press. Bradley Phillips. Young man, now 20 years old, banned for 4 years due to the breaking of COVID procedures. Now, the way that this has been worded is that he provided a false test and also infected 3 members of PDC staff. Now, that's the bit I find a little bit tricky, because I don't know how you can decide where they got the COVID from. However, from the stories that we heard at the time and what we're seeing now, turned up to a challenge tour event and ended up providing a false test. Now, what you have to do back in these days, when the COVID first hit, we used to go to an event and we used to get swabbed and everything to go into this bubble environment. As the restrictions got relaxed, they also got relaxed a little bit more within the sporting world. And what you could do in this is you could go to an event with a, I can't remember what they used to be called now, those little samp pod things. So you'd do this test, you'd put it on that little plastic card thing, and you could take along one of those to say, there you go, I've done a test and I'm clear. Now, what's happened in this situation is Bradley's done one of those and it's come up positive, so he's got somebody else who's not got COVID to do it, and then he's gone with that test. So he provided a false cartridge to the PDC to allow him to play in this event. Now, when this got found out, I believe what happened is there was a fire drill, and he got a bit mouthy apparently outside, telling a few people overheard and reported it. PDC pulled him aside, did a test, and yes, he came up positive. So, he was removed from the event, but also anybody that he had been in contact with was also removed from the event, even when they was playing their matches. People still in the tournament. So random buys started popping up all over the place, and we wondered what was going on. Now, when I do these videos, I like to try and stay very independent, shall we say, with this. But I don't think all this falls on Bradley. I think there's probably some really bad advice being given here. And certainly, he'd have been, 18 years old, maybe 17 years old at the time. He probably would have been driven to the venue by parents. I think they've got a big say in this one as well, for sort of allowing this situation to happen. It certainly wouldn't have gone undetected. He certainly would have had to ask somebody to provide him that cartridge as well. So lots of wrongs going on here. I think the right punishment is in place. I don't think a financial punishment would have been suitable at this time, especially for someone so young, but certainly to take away the opportunity now to play in DRA regulated events. It's a 4-year ban. I think that's a big enough slap on the wrist. Certainly when you look at what problems that could have caused. Not only do we look at the problems it caused for other people in the event, we could have been looking at people losing out on gaining a tour card. People could have lost out on a world championship spot because of this decision. So it was quite a hefty and weighty decision that could have impacted quite a lot. But not only that, this is something that could really have impacted the ability to continue playing tournaments. It may have come, if the COVID restrictions got tighter with something like this around and in the press, this could be something where the sports minister may have said, okay, well, darts isn't able to continue in its current environment because it's not protected enough when we've allowed someone with COVID into this sort of bubble environment. So it could have stopped all the Pro Tours. It could have stopped quite a lot. It is a very, very serious event. So, yeah, but I think the right punishment is in place. Across to the latest hearings here, and we'll have a look through what we've got. Now, there's a couple of these. Look at this one. Betting on darts, betting on darts Q School, betting on darts Q School, and then the same here all the way through. So quite a few people betting on darts. Now, you'll see here the different rules in which it has breached betting rules. Now, as soon as you sign up to Q School, this is a warning to any of you that want to go to Q School to see how good you are, for a little bit of fun, to see what it's like. The second you go to Q School, you will become a PDPA associate member. By being a PDPA associate member, you are bound to the rules of a professional player. Now, you don't have that PDC contract. Remember I mentioned that earlier. Two slightly different things, but you are bound to the DRA. You have to pay a DRA regulation fee in order to play, and that is you agreeing to the DRA rulebook. As soon as you do that, no gambling, no betting. Now, you can see here a couple of people that have been sort of seen during this period of time having a bet. Some people, just a formal warning, some fines. Now, the fines will differ depending on, I'm guessing, the level of knowledge that person would have. We'll see here like Neil Sonneveld, Adam Smith-Neil, they've been tour card holders before, they know the rules. So the other thing is it might be the amount of betting that they've been doing. Maybe they was having multiple bets, maybe there was higher stakes. So I don't think these are all going to be on the same situation. Certainly something like Bruce Troop, for example, who maybe just went along to Q School to see how it went and didn't really know or understand the rules, or didn't think that the betting rules applied to him. But the PDC, Matron, Barry Hearn have massive sort of investment into integrity for the sport. You are not, as one of these players, as someone who goes on the PDPA, you are not going to be able to place a bet that they are not going to know about. There is patterns of play. There are markets. Every time, this is what gets me when people say, "Oh, that person's match fixing." All it's trust me, it's virtually impossible to match fix without being caught or without being found, because there are certain patterns. There's certain ways in which they find. There's certain sort of levels that they expect. I don't know the full system, but we've been warned heavily about it, and it red flags up very quickly. You now have to do a sporting integrity quiz, questionnaire, educational course as part of the PDC. And a lot of that comes down to the fact that if you did go and do it, that when you get that letter, you can't turn around and say, "Well, I didn't know." Now you do. And now you know again. Stop doing it. So the DRA, there's certain people that you just sort of expect to see on the list. I believe they've got car parking spaces at the DRA. Vincent van der Voort, one of those. This time, failure to mark. Now, this is something that doesn't normally come up on the PDC. There are now markers for every single board and board officials, so you don't really ever have to deal with this. However, during the COVID times, it was a self-mark competition, so the player at the bottom of the draw will mark the first game, and then from that point, it will be loser marks. Vincent van der Voort. Sometimes you can forget this. I mean, I nearly got caught with this myself. I walked off and then I'm like, "Oh no, I need to go back." And I ran back and got there in time and able to mark the game with no disruption to the event. And that might just be the case here. There's a few other cases. You'll see Aaron Monk, another man with a car parking space at the DRA. He failed to mark at Q School. Probably the same sort of thing again. Probably just forgot about the situation. Couple more people on page 2 as well, betting on the darts. Told you guys, pack it in. You won't get away with it. Page number 3 goes back to COVID restrictions. Now, when we was in this sort of bubble environment, you got checked in on arrival, you went to your hotel room, you stayed in your hotel room, you went to the venue, you could play your darts in the venue, and then you had 10 minutes from the second you was lost to go back to your hotel room. Breakfast was brought to the hotel room. You had to pre-order it the day before. It was basically like dart in prison. And within that environment and that bubble, you wasn't able to interact anywhere outside of those situations. You had to have a face mask on to move around the arena, move around the hotel, to move around the corridors. The only time you wasn't allowed to wear your face mask was when you was practicing darts or playing darts, because everybody knows that when you're trying to play darts, you can't catch COVID. You remember how weird the rules was. So, a couple of people broke those hotel policies. The thing I don't get with this is the level of the fine for certain. I believe these are managers that got £900 and it was £700 to players. I'm not quite sure why they differ so much, especially as when we look at the DRA rules broken, for the players, they broke rule 3.1 and 3.7. So they broke 2 rules, according to... I don't get how it works. I don't think anyone quite grasps the full system yet. But hotel policies. Page number 4, there's been some naughty boys. Gerwin Price. I think he owns the car park, to be fair with you. I think pays for the Christmas fund, the parties, the building. He's given some money to the DRA over the years. If you do want to see that, by the way, guys, I do have a video on the biggest fines handed out by the DRA. I'll link that in the description below, and I'll put it on the end screen as well if you want to go back and watch an old Edgar TV classic. But going price this time, £1,200 fine for failure to mark and public criticism on social media. Now, it's key to remember as well, when you are a professional dart player, it is not just about your conduct in the arena. You are also responsible for social media and media commitments. You can be fined for not even completing your media commitments. At the end of the game, you've got, I think it's 5 or 10 minute window where it's your time. Then you have to make yourself available for media commitments. The same before a match. You get a couple of hours before the game, but you have to be available for those media commitments the opposite side of that time. So you do have allocated time, but you've also got to make sure you're available, because there's a big part of that, especially for the broadcaster. That's a big part of the show, and you might lose a sizable chunk of your prize money if you're not obligating those. A couple of other things on here, a couple of fails to mark. It happened quite a little bit during that period of time, not too surprising. You'll see at the bottom there, Marcel and Jerry, guest disruptive behaviour. Now, in order to go to a Pro Tour event, you have to be either a player or a bona fide guest of the player. The player can't just go, I met a guy on Twitter, here's a pass to come to the event. It's not a ticket, it's a guest pass. When you come in, you'll get a wristband, so security know that you are allowed to be in the venue, and they'll write the name of the player of which you are in there to be with, who's signing you in. That player is then responsible for your behaviour. That player, if you go off and go, right, this guy's a right bell, I don't like you, I think you're a bit of a cheesy one, the player's responsible. If he goes, right, I hate him, I'm going to put one on him, the player's responsible. The player will probably get suspended for it or fined heavily for it. So yeah, absolutely, you're responsible for the guests. There's a lot of responsibility, isn't there? So don't take naughty boys with you. Another one here that's quite interesting, Steve West and Kim Hybrex. Now, this could be one of two things. Now, with the various rules that could be implied, and I think this is probably something that happened in the arena. Now, if that is the case, I was there for this moment. What happened is, well, there was both complaining about something, and it ended up disturbing the event a little bit. Now, I might as well just be blunt with it. It's the easiest way to be, isn't it? Strap yourself in. A player stinks. Like, reeks. Like, proper hums. Like, type hum. There's quite a few of them. I did say if I get to 100,000 subscribers, I'm making that video because I don't care anymore if I get to 100,000 subscribers. The smelliest players in darts will be landing, don't you worry. But there was a stinker. And it was a few days into the event, and it was one of those COVID-y sort of ones, and it's probably the only time everyone actually wanted to wear their face mask, probably more like a gas mask at the time. And there was a stinker around, and there was quite a hefty debate about it. But these two people in particular got heavily involved in that debate. But I think it's because there was very close to that person at the time. Yeah, but I agree. I was around at the same sort of time, but I'll just keep my head down and get on. But yeah, there was quite a debate around it at the time. So yeah, I believe that's what that one is. But 100,000, I'll make the video. I'll do it. And then a couple more on the last page as well. Recklessly throwing darts could just be something as simple as when you've missed a double and you just chuck that last one in, or throwing an underarm dart, anything like that. Because you've got to remember as well that in these booths and in these pods, that the person stood marking the board is potentially at risk if you start throwing darts underarm or without control. A dart needs to be thrown in an overarm and deliberate fashion in order for it to count. So anything that's not overarm and deliberate fashion, I'd say is a recklessly thrown dart. A couple of things there as well about comments and media comments and things like that. Absolutely toe the line with those sort of comments, anything that can be seen to bring the game into disrepute. Luckily, I've not had a DRA letter as of yet. I can imagine when that comes through, bit of a panic for people because they're like, we don't really know. There's not really a set criteria. You can see here some people had warnings, some people had fines, some people had bigger fines. I believe it's more done on a staircasing system, so the more that you're in front of them, the harsher they'll be with those sort of penalties, which is why Gerwin Price has a direct debit straight to the DRA. But yeah, hope you have enjoyed this video and this look through this fine list. If you have, please do go and pop a like on it. Put a comment down below if anything really has stood out for you, and I'll catch you soon for some more Edgar TV. Edgar TV.